Who's going to come to Ahmedabad to see the Atal Bridge? I mean, there are far more sophisticated versions of that anywhere else in the developed world. So people would come to Ahmedabad or to India for its culture and its diversity, not for what is global and industrially made. So I think fundamentally, I can't say I'm a designer, but I have an eye or a sensibility for design, and I have a sensibility for financial sustenance. Ahmedabad is the first city where industrialization in India started with the textile mills. There was no industry in India, so first business people in India were from Ahmedabad. Ahmedabad is a right place for anybody who wants to do something futuristic. Earlier there were craftsmen who were the designers. There were no designer profession in India before the Brits came, and they started architecture, but they didn't allow any industrial design.
Welcome to TADPOD with Dhruvita Maida, the D-lead featuring the maestro of heritage and modernity, the respected Abhay Mangaldas Sir Ji. This is an initiative by the Architect's Diary. Some cities carry their history in every stone, every lane, every whisper of a courtyard or haveli. Ahmedabad is one such city, a living mosaic of memories, art and architecture. And some people carry history within themselves, shaping its present and future with vision, care, and a rare creative spirit. Today on TEDPOD D-Lead with Dhruvita Maida, we step into the world of a man whose work bridges centuries, where heritage converses with modernity and hospitality becomes an art form. He is Abhay Mangaldas, the maestro of heritage and modernity, visionary entrepreneur, preservationist, and custodian of culture. From restoring his ancestral Haveli into one of the India's most beloved heritage hotels to leading the Shreyas Foundation, designed by Pritzker Prize-winning architect B.V. Doshi sir, and serving as a convener of Intech Ahmedabad chapter, Abhay sir continues to protect what defines us, our living heritage. Educated at Boston University with a master's in mass communication, specializing in computer graphics and animation, he represents a rare harmony of vision, creativity, and pragmatism. Over the decades, his journey has shaped Ahmedabad's identity, inspiring the world to experience Gujarati culture with modern grace. Let's step into the mind and world of a man who sees time not as something gone, but something beautifully preserved, celebrated, and reimagined. Abhay Mangaldas sir, again the maestro of heritage and modernity. Once again, sir, it's a pride privilege to be seated over here and be able to have such amazing conversation.
Thank you.
So without taking much time, we have a lot to talk about. Let me start with my first question. Abhay sir, coming from the legacy of Mangaldas Girdhar and Chimanlal Girdhar, how do you feel, coming from a family of heritage influence, your path towards heritage conservation and entrepreneurship?
Of course, it's a sense of pride that one feels that your ancestors participated in the makeup of what the city is today. But you cannot live in reflected glory, So that is a very strong notion that, all right, the accident of birth put you in this kind of a family. So you have some privileges, but what are you going to do about it? So that has always been the overlaying thought even today, that what is the legacy that I leave behind rather than what was left by my ancestors. So I think all the work that I do, somewhere I'm conscious about my own contribution more than which family I come from.
So I think you're very humble and very individualistic in your approach, and that itself brings so much vigor and power to all the kind of projects you are taking ahead, which had its own benchmark set, and you are setting one more benchmark. That's really amazing. And then further, I would also want to know that, you share a childhood memory in Ahmedabad, and that sparked your interest in architecture, culture, and, preservation. So how did you really get an eye towards this stream?
More than my being in Ahmedabad, which of course played a factor, but the primary factor was that I come from a family where my father is a designer, my mother was also a designer. And both were well educated, well traveled, and design was a subject that was often discussed on the dining table. And we often interacted with designers from different parts of the world, artists, designers, culture. The discussion about culture, architecture, art was quite commonplace. So when you grow up with that, it obviously leads to a certain awareness and curiosity. So that has been the groundwork for my interest in what I'm doing today. So House of MG was the first opportunity to try and put that interest into action. But I would say fundamentally, I'm an entrepreneur and I see opportunity and try and see that opportunity, use it for sustainable business model. So I think fundamentally, I can't say I'm a designer, but I have an eye or a sensibility for design, and I have a sensibility for financial sustenance.
So it's so wonderful that you engulfed, along with the food, the art in your everyday table chats. And that's really fantastic. Very rarely people get such highly educated surrounding every nook and corner in their house. So I'm always sure that, your legacy in that, childhood days was something which was very fundamental towards your eye towards this kind of entrepreneurship. And so you're with both family legacy and, modern business opportunities in your hand. How did you focus on the heritage hospitality and cultural entrepreneurship?
So the story was that, like most families, we had an ancestral home, which is the House of MG. But at the same time, we had hundreds of cousins who jointly owned the home, which made it impossible to do anything there. And it so happened that there was a window to separate out the family assets. And that is the starting point at which this journey began, that we were able to do exchange of assets amongst the family, thereby those who wanted certain aspect of the joint assets got those and were exchanged for those that they didn't want. And my interest was in a very dilapidated old building in the center of what is the wrong side of the river. And since my father is an architect, he said, why don't we just get this, and let's see what we can do with it. So that's how it started. And then it's been a journey of 30 years.
So the foresightedness, it's really commendable because the minute you enter this place, it is just magical. As an outsider, the minute you just stand on the gates of this building, I'm sure that envisionment or this foresightedness of your family, you have really paid the right tribute to it.
Thank you.
So Ahmedabad breathes through layers of history, and from poles to plaza, how do you envision its future growth while preserving its soul as India's first UNESCO World Heritage City?
So the fact that Ahmedabad is a World Heritage City is fairly recent, about 8 years ago.
Right.
But Ahmedabad has a history of design. It is the capital of design in India. Why do I say so? Because the city fathers, they were very future, they had eye on the future. Ahmedabad is the first city where industrialization in India started.
True.
With the textile mills. There was no industry in India. Industrialization was with the steam engine, but that was transportation. So the first business people in India were from Ahmedabad. It was Bombay Presidency then, but so my family was in that. They decided that Ahmedabad needed to have a different vision which looked at the future. And what was the future? It was to embrace global. Ahmedabad had to become global. It couldn't remain provincial. And most Indian cities were very provincial. So they opened up in the 60s the first design schools in India. So the National Institute of Design, the School of Architecture were all in the early 60s. And this was in response to the fact that the designers were required of a different type than the craftsmen. Earlier, there were craftsmen who were the designers. There were no designer profession in India before the Brits came. And they started architecture, but they didn't allow any industrial design. So who are the industrial designers? So you had to have a school for it. So the Sarabhais started the National Institute of Design. Then with Lalbhai, they started Indian Institute of Management and the School of Architecture. All this with international designers. And the influence of international design and started since the 60s. And therefore, there was always a certain awareness and exchange of ideas of international community with the local community and the local patrons. So therefore, you see all these buildings in Ahmedabad and all these institutes, which meant that it was possible to try and experiment with design. So it started with textiles, but it went on to product design, XYZ. And I was very privy to this transition happening. I was born in the late 60s, so this was very much at the beginning of the design period. And my family was so involved with design. Therefore, I think that Ahmedabad is a right place for anybody who wants to do something futuristic. And while I may have restored this property, it was never an idea to go back into time. The idea was always to remain current. What it means is that this any real estate or any house or building can go through different avatars. And so the first avatar was of a residence. Then it went into a decline because the residents moved out and it was in real state of decay. And then the third avatar is of a hotel. So this transition happened with a lot of emphasis on crafts and design. And so in this house, you will see it's a showcase of Indian crafts, local crafts, I would say. There are no brands in this hotel. And everything is made in locality. Sustainable is something which is a very foreign word because our Deshi things were automatically sustainable. Because anything handmade is by design or by its nature sustainable. It's only when you mass produce that or produce anything by machine that it becomes unsustainable because it gets focused in one place. Whereas if you do hand do, you do जितना चाहिए इतना बनाएंगे आप, ज़्यादा तो नहीं बनाएंगे आज थोड़ा बहुत बिकने का है वो बनाएंगे. So therefore I've tried to use, and there are so many crafts around and these craftsmen don't have much work. I mean they do, but not value added work as such. So we have used a lot of crafts who are on the streets to make stuff for us in the hotel. And I think anybody coming to this hotel will witness all those things. It's well documented. You will even see that. And in this sofa, you can see these dots.
Yeah.
These dots are actually quite interesting. This material is entirely recycled,
right.
Upcycled fabric. This material is upcycled from old fabric. It's been redone. And these are mended. These are not for design. These are mended. There were little tears or something. Yeah. These are mended by these Rafu women, and we feel it's artistic. It's interesting, you know. Yeah. Why throw it away because of a little tear? So essentially, this is a way of thinking. Yes. That how can you make something which somebody else would throw away into an element of design and use it in a hotel, which is perhaps the most expensive hotel in Ahmedabad, you know. And our customer also recognizes and realizes and appreciates these little interventions. So we have this kind of thing happening all over the place.
So I'm sure the minute a person enters in the vibes which you are talking of, you can like really feel it in every nook and corner. Like starting from there is a modernization also, there is automation also in these hotels and all the restorations which you do. And there is also a sense of sustainable approach, which was so Indianized and so natural and candid that you've really used it every single place. Also, the contribution of your family, which has been so pivotal for the city's growth, and the synergy between the various art and technology and the kind of essence of creating the identity for the town. I'm really very much thankful to the family you belong to, which made a footprint on the world map, which Ahmedabad still carries till now. So further that you've built a legacy with craft meets commerce, especially, and from the House of MG to cultural tourism models. How do you view the intersection of art, craft, and design in your philosophy?
In my philosophy, it's very ingrained, but in terms of how I view it as a cultural tourism or heritage tourism, why do people travel? You travel for sightseeing, you travel for food, you travel for cultural experiences, and you travel to shop, I guess. So, all these reasons to travel, we've attempted to incorporate in one property. So House of MG attempts, I humbly say it attempts, to become a single window for anybody coming to Gujarat or anybody coming through Ahmedabad to get a glimpse into all these aspects of Gujarat, handmade experiences we design around Ahmedabad, around the old city. We are in the gateway to the entry to the World Heritage City. Food, all the food at House of MG is like Ghar Ka Khana, which we have our own recipe books. We have museums over here for textiles which showcase the most beautiful textiles of both Gujarat and of India. We have another gallery of silver, jewelry, artifacts, items of worship. And everything at House of MG is extremely well documented. So there is a story behind every work of art or every object or every design intervention. We try and put a story behind it because there is one, and we try and educate our guest in what we are attempting to do. So for example, if you are at our restaurant, if our training is working, then you can ask question about what's around and somebody will be able to answer it intelligently to kind of say, okay, you can go here or you can go there and this is what you can do, etc. So our attempt is to become the gateway to the culture and heritage of Ahmedabad.
Fantastic. I mean, it was so amazing to see a well in your hotel and how nicely ornamented and preserved that, how wonderful restoration of rainwater harvesting and all has been inclusive in your whole modern interiors, which is having blend of both. I mean, so it's really amazing. Your journey embodies perseverance and transformative vision. So what values have you, inculcated which have helped to stand the test of time in heritage entrepreneurship, especially when modern development often overlooks the old?
I think the fundamental idea remains the same everywhere, that there is a certain ethical framework within which you function. And this ethical framework is based on a set of values. And these extend to even your sensibilities or how you use material or how you work with the staff or what kind of people you employ, to the hospitality that they are able to offer, to the kind of ingredients that you bring into the food. It's like saying that when a really good garment is where if you wear it upside down, you can't tell the difference. Then it's a really well-stitched garment. So I would like to think that if the guests went into our kitchens, they would find them spotless, just like they would the outside area where they eat. So these kind of little things run through, and we run it like a house more than a hotel. And we run this place. Our staff is like our family, and they're all from villages, nice people. So that is something about the hotel and the running of it. In terms of my other work that I do, this slightly Gandhian, I would say, ideology of being a custodian rather than being an owner, that runs through. That, I mean, this place is already 100 plus years old, and it'll be there after I go, and it was there before I came, so I'm just holding the baton and passing it on, and I added some value. So this kind of thing also happens at foundation where I work. It was started by my grandmother, and I'm now doing something, and it'll be there after I go. So the satisfaction is in knowing that what you're doing is having an impact. It is hopefully able to communicate a certain value system. It is able to communicate sensibility. And these are the type of which people might feel inspired to emulate. Not something which you will say, this is fancy, this is a fad. It is something which is timeless. We try and do things which are timeless, I would like to think.
Very beautifully, kept in words, because I'm very sure a lot of people don't see this perspective of any kind of hotelier industry where you are trying to really give a good platform for an inclusive approach where even your people who are working with you are getting a sense of ownership, which is really commendable. Could you now, I'm very sure you have a lot of knowledge about obviously architecture, interiors, and so you would have talked about entrepreneurship, but in this segment, I would also want to talk more about design and your thoughts on that. So could you shed a light on the project Bucky and the experimental architecture styles and the multifunctional scopes you are exploring, from the parametric design to geodesic domes, sustainable modular pods, and nature-inspired tensile systems?
I love to build. And when I finished with the restoration work, I had a few projects in mind for our foundation and for a property in Mumbai, Alibag, and as well as we have quite an interesting collection of avant-garde art for which I wanted to do a gallery. So all these projects were requiring me to build. And I was thinking that, okay, if I want to build and what I have learned from what I have done so far, how would I want to build? So the normal template is brick and mortar and hire an architect, hire an engineer, hire a designer, and then put it together. So I thought, no, I don't want to build like this. How can I build so that I rethink of what a shelter is? After a building is kind of a shelter. So how if I was to reimagine a shelter in a contemporary context? So I started thinking from that seed of an idea that I want to rethink how a building can be. The second thing I felt was that it's too complicated to build. It takes too long to build. These are not things that a normal person would enjoy doing, taking 5 years to build, 7 years to build. It takes too long. How to build so that you can make it quickly. So with these certain constraints that I want to build in this way and not in the conventional way because of these reasons, I set off researching. And of course, there were already experiments with pre-engineered, prefabricated buildings, and I levitated towards those. But again, in those, I looked around what was available and I couldn't find anything which suited my requirement. Internationally, I did a search everywhere. I traveled, I looked at things, and I didn't find anything which quite matched what I wanted. That's when I went back into my memory and I remembered that the most fascinating architecture was of Buckminster Fuller, who had done a Bucky Dome, if you remember, for Calico Mills.
Yes.
And it was a traveling dome where they held fashion shows, or they kept a little shop under the dome. And when they traveled, they would do a fashion show and then you could shop, And the beauty of this was that it was made of one single cell and it was repeated. And there was such optimal use of material that I said, that's fantastic. I should do something which is cellular architecture with minimal use of material. So that's how the parametric idea came along. I pitched it to this a very interesting architect called Jwalant Madhewala, who I had met at Raw Collaborative, that event that happens. And he had shown some parametric stuff. So that's how that thing took off. And we created this unusual parametric dome called Bucky. But it's called Bucky because the thought came from cellular architecture. It's not a Bucky dome, but it's a parametric dome. And then the idea, as I said, continued to my wanting to build in the foundation and wanting to build in a hill in Alibag. So at the foundation, it's a beautiful piece of land in the middle of Ahmedabad with lots and lots of trees. And I said, you cannot, just because you want to build, cannot dig and put a foundation inside and put cement. And I don't want to do that. And then we came up with this idea of Lego. You know the Lego, you play with the Lego bricks. So I said, why can't we do modular architecture? It so happened that our Haveli, one of our Havelis is a wooden Haveli, the vernacular, Mangaldas ni Haveli 1.
Yes.
That is actually a modular architecture in wood. That at that time, all the columns, all the beams, all the windows, all the doors were the same, all the brackets. And you could use one from one Haveli in another one. So that made so much sense that if everything was standardized, then you could keep using it again and again without having to worry about sizes and dimensions. So I took that idea forward and we created, with the help of this amazing engineer called Devendra Shah, who is used to be my father's partner, we created this kit of parts. Just like Lego is. There's a kit of parts which if you put together, you get a building. Wow. So now we have developed this kit of part and which we are experimenting with for the foundation. And all our new buildings at the foundation are made using this idea of temporary, but permanently temporary.
Yeah.
And the third one was for the hill in Alibag.
Wow.
There I felt that we are in nature. Where in nature do you see linearity? No abode of any other species than humans is ever linear. It is always organic. Linearity came with industrialization. There was no linearity in architecture before industrialization, you know. So I said, okay, so by design, humans feel most comfortable in organic shapes rather than in straight lines. So I want to build a building which had no corner. So I gave this brief to this architect who I found on the net in Australia.
Okay.
And we just clicked and we worked on this idea of doing a totally cocoon type of a building which could be in nature and it was also modular at the same time. So that's how we developed that third design, third product. And then it went on and now we've developed more products and so on and so forth. But it's like a journey that the more you explore, the more you understand and you make mistakes and you discover ways out of that mistake and you have to be practical. So that journey I'm on, and I think it's a fascinating journey because I think in India, with so many people and such big housing issues, we cannot keep building like this, the way we are building. Because any building that we build today is going to become redundant after 20, 30 years, you know, and then what do you do with all that building material? It just goes to waste. So you have to find a system of building where you can reuse that material somewhere, or you can remove it without destroying or damaging the earth in any way. So this is our focus of what kind of buildings we want to do. And we can use that technology even in restoration of old buildings. But anyway, it's an idea which is slightly premature for people to quite understand. But eventually when they see our work, they're beginning to kind of get a idea of what you can do. I'm hoping that that will inspire other people to do the same.
So it's very future ready, and I'm sure the way you are terming this architectural design into a product, which you just like discussed earlier before the shoot started, that now we want to term the design or an architecture process as like a product wherein people can, you know, just get it when and when they want and can obviously move it.
Yeah, you can order it. You should be able to order a house, or you should be able to order a health center, or you should be able to order things rather than having to build it from scratch. And that is eventually the direction which not only us, but everybody is moving, because building is too complicated. You can't take the whole factory to the site every time. You have to build in a factory and then take it to site. Just now we take the whole factory to the site, and every site becomes a factory.
The same question further goes ahead that, as you always say, that factory goes to the site and then the philosophy transforms the construction, especially with the recycled materials in the textile architecture. So people don't understand how textile and this modular and tensile, these are the terms which obviously the field people would know, but a lot of other viewers would want to know. What have you explored via the textile architecture?
So the two architects or designers who really influenced this idea one was Buckminster, I said, the other was Fry Otto. Fry Otto, he did everything in textile. So he used textile as a building material. And he was trying to biomimic the shape of the textile by looking at the spider's web, So where the pressure tensile points can be. And I find this amazing that you can just fold a house and then you can unfold it and you put points at certain things and it becomes a shape you want and it becomes an enclosure, a shelter. So, and a tent is one example of such a thing. So how can you, and he developed the entire Munich pavilion using this architecture. So it's possible to do at scale. Now you get industrial fabrics. And with industrial fabrics, you get industrial quality. So there's insulation, there is life, and there are all kinds of colors available. So I think textile architecture, I can't say that I have explored much. I love to use tensile shades, but I have not made it as sophisticated as it can be. I have to do that as the journey continues.
So hopefully even the products which you're talking of would have this one more stream of textile into it, wherein they could order whatever they want as a...
I think it would be hybrid.
Yes.
Because it doesn't have to be one or the other. You can do a hybrid.
Right.
And the idea is that you can do something with traditional mud, like the nomadic architecture. Mm-hmm. The nomadic architecture is fascinating because it moves with the nomads,
Yeah.
So nomadic architecture and extremely contemporary industrial materials, the ideas of nomadic architecture and the materials of today, when you combine them, you can come up with something quite fascinating.
So I'm sure this metamorphosis and the biomimicry and the kind of replicating the nature via the modern means, I think is something which the future is looking ahead to. So you have been a custodian of the past and a creative director of future. I mean, you term yourself as a creative director. So how do you envision India's tourism evolving through new models, shared living spaces, startup-led reuse policies, and the transfer of development rights or TDR for sustainable urban growth?
So first of all, tourism growth depends on how you are able to retain your identity. Because otherwise, if you're a global identity, who is going to come to Ahmedabad to see the bullet train? Mm. Who is going to come to Ahmedabad to see the Atal Bridge? I mean, there are far more sophisticated versions of that anywhere else in the developed world. So people would come to Ahmedabad or to India for its culture and its diversity, not for what is global and industrially made. Now, how do you keep this genuine rather than touristy? Because every community which has these traditions is also slowly losing them, and they are adopting contemporary lifestyles. So they are losing their own. They are losing their languages. They are losing their clothing. They are losing their food, everything. They're moving out of their houses to brick and mortar houses or cement houses from bungas, for example. So this cannot be stopped. It's not possible to stop it. So you have to somehow balance it. And you cannot stop a Rabari wearing a beautiful traditional outfit from wanting to wear jeans. You cannot. He will wear jeans. So this is something which is futile to fight. But it makes sense to try and put value to it in some way and to make the person realize that what they're having is really valuable, to be able to save it. And it has a lot to do with our education. So that's one aspect. of what is possible. So I'm fortunately in education, and then our foundation highly is focused on culture and heritage and giving those values to kids. So I think that I'm able to contribute a little bit from in that direction. On the other side, you spoke about environment and sustainability. So I think that people want to go to places which are green. And slowly people are becoming aware of how green whatever product they use or hotel they stay in or the environment they go to are, Nobody wants to go to an urban jungle beyond a certain amount of time. So here I feel this whole thing about TDR that you mentioned, I think that in a country like India, everybody is more concerned about the benefit to them. What is the benefit to me to be green? That is the first question anybody will ask. It doesn't mean benefit to somebody else. What is the benefit to me? And the benefit to you or anybody has to be very well defined and easy to understand. So since we are speaking about old homes, or we are speaking about trees, or we are speaking about farms, or we are speaking about greenery or forests, what benefit to the tribal if the forest land he lives in is to be converted into some urban land and he gets no benefit? There has to be some benefit to that owner or a farmer or even a person living in a house with a lot of greenery around. What benefit is there? None. Land or open spaces or trees have no value today. Slowly this carbon credit thing is coming, but it'll take a long while. So what can you do even to sustain our old city? How can you sustain something when you put 500 rules on the person who has been so far the custodian of his beautiful home? He doesn't want a constraint on what he does with his house. How can government just come and say, you can't do this, you can't do that, just because it is heritage? But what benefit does it give to him? And government even doesn't help. So they've started with this TDR, and I think it's an interesting tool because it gives a benefit. So TDR stands for Transferable Development Rights, which essentially means that you can sell the FSI of the property or open space or greenery that you're not building on to somebody who wants to build somewhere else. This is what TDR means. So we are proposing that they should give TDR for all open spaces, because each open space has some FSI anyways, which is realized only when they sell it. So why can't it be realized before they sell it? So if you have a beautiful garden, till you sell it, you have no value of the garden. But the moment you sell it, suddenly you get a lot of money. But what if you were able to sell the FSI of that open space? So your amount of what's in future you can build there may go down, but you'll get money for it, with which you can do whatever you want, and the money comes into the economy. So this is a simple idea that to keep Ahmedabad green, introduce FSI, TDR for all open spaces, which will encourage people to not sell off their open lands, to encourage people to keep greenery. For that, we've got a factor that, okay, depending on how old the trees are, you give some benefits or tax incentives, etc., in the policy that we've drafted. And in the old city, we are saying, why don't you make us urban economic zone? So you're aware that to develop any backward zone, they make in a SEZ. Special economic zone. What does it do? It invites investment.
Yes.
Because they give a lot of
Private
benefits.
partnerships. And
A lot of benefits, tax benefits, tax cuts, holidays, etc. If they were to make Ahmedabad Heritage City, the World Heritage City, into a tourism and handicraft urban economic zone, because it cannot be a special, there are some terminology, but it's like an SEZ, but it's called UEZ. If they made it an urban economic zone, and if they gave extreme benefits to the defined list of industries which are related to tourism, whether they be galleries or craft shops or homestays or restaurants, etc., which are around tourism and handicraft. What if the government gave these benefits to encourage investment in these businesses in the old city? That is number one. That would encourage these people to either stay or come there. And number two, for the certified heritage buildings, which there are 2,300 in the whole city, what if they gave, let's say, 3 times FSI of the property, of the survey number where that property lies, whereby the price of that would jump, because 3 times FSI is, when you sell it, you get 1 FSI or whatever that FSI of that is. But if you multiply it into 3, then you get a lot of value for that, which of course can be regulated in how you encash it by how much you put back into the restoration. So there are some, this is technical, I don't want to make it too technical, but the idea is to make it really attractive for investment to come to the old city, which just now it's not. It's only old businesses which are running, and they're also going out slowly. What if they did that? And of course, government has to bring in their own infrastructure to support all this. But the private enterprise would be hugely encouraged with the government intervention of infrastructure to retain the old structures. This is what our idea is. I hope the government accepts or looks at it at least, With the Olympics coming, and if suppose we win the bid, why will people come to Ahmedabad? To look at what? To see some riverfront? Okay, it's nice, but I mean, there are riverfronts many places. Why will the whole world come to Ahmedabad? For its heritage, for its crafts, for its culture. So you better invest in it from now, not only in sports stadia, And this is what the government has to realize, and I'm sure it does.
So it's really very strong and very clear as an idea that one has to really preserve the roots, because it's easy to amalgamate your identity, which is very much repetitive or maybe something which is not so timeless. So I'm sure the model which you're talking of and the sense of clarity of it becomes a solid system which can be applied very soon. Further, I would want to know that, the Shreyas Foundation, if you've empowered children with holistic education, creativity, and the freedom to discover their potential. How does your philanthropic work reflect your belief in individual growth within a community context?
So, for a child, or for an adult for that matter, what is the most important factor? I believe it is a sense of identity. People don't have an identity. They lose their identity and adopt a bulk or a mass identity. They belong to this group. So it becomes a group identity. But very few people have a very individual identity. And if you have an individual identity, it's sometimes considered good, sometimes considered not so good. So it depends. But I think individualism is a very positive thing, in my opinion.
It is scarce.
But it is not so encouraged. You want to merge. You want to merge with the crowd. You don't want to stand out in the crowd. Whereas at Shreyas, we try and tell them you stand out in the crowd. Not by doing anything flashy, but just by being yourself. All of us have a different fingerprints. We are different in every way. So try and highlight that difference rather than merging with everybody else and doing what everybody else does, which you can only do if you slowly take pride in your identity. So let's say I'm Gujarati. My mother is half Maharashtrian. I had some understanding of design and craft and whatever, textiles. So I should try and create my own identity because I have an identity. I've just lost it. So in Shreyas, we try and encourage every child through our curricula. Of course, we follow the education policy, etc. But we try and make it a very identity and heritage-driven curriculum. And everything in our campus is very much revolves around festivals, around Indian culture. We pay a lot of importance to language, Indian, meaning Gujarati language, Hindi, Sanskrit. English is now an Indian language as far as I'm concerned. So, of course, English. But the second thing that I feel in education is that, yes, you must have an identity, a sense of values. It has to be a value-based education, not a how many marks you got, or how much money will you get for your first job. Most educational setups now advertise that, oh, our kids, our alumni got a job offer at this price. It's immaterial, according to me.
The
It
package
is important. Yeah, the package is okay, fair enough that you require to have a good job, but you will get it if you have an identity anyways. And today, there you are sitting you are doing a vlog, okay? And that's made your career. Who would have thought if you had asked your dad 5-10 years ago that want to become a vlogger and they say, what, are you crazy? But today there are so many opportunities opening up that I don't think that the older generation really realizes that you can excel at anything. And that's what we try to do at Shreyas. We give a lot of exposure in so many different ways to our children, which no other school can, only because we have an incredible infrastructure, incredible facilities, which very few schools can, not because of anything else, but it's just the way this has been for 70 years.
So it's a genuine legacy, I would say, because when you work on the ground and when you work on the grassroots level, which is the young minds, I think they can definitely create a change. And you are always of the philosophy that be the change you want to see. So what you are trying to do in your current, arena of entrepreneurship and creating a meaning towards life, I'm sure people looking at you get inspired in its own. And also the mentors around in the Shreyas would definitely have played a pivotal role to all the alumni and also the people already studying there. So it's very important in today's education to have this holistic ideology and have a very stress-free environment of education where people are not judged on the basis of some credits and all, rather having that independent thoughts which are being nurtured so positively. Fantastic. And then further, that same question, that individualism and collectivism, coexistence in modern design, culture, education, and then this, how have you done in your projects, like design projects? How do you create a sense of iconic identity and individualistic approach in your sense of design?
Well, in our Darwin project is very evident. Not that you'd set out to be individualistic, but you follow your convictions. So I'm convinced that the idea that I have is a good one. Now it's a question of how I'm able to interpret it and how I'm able to put it to life. So this challenge is what I'm going through. But the idea itself is so futuristic, of creating a building in a factory and then taking it to site and putting it up and then being able to remove it, that I think that it doesn't have to translate to a design, but it is a thought. So I think I like to feel that my thoughts are quite individualistic and they are aligned to who I think I am, So there is a little resonance. I don't feel a conflict in that at all.
It's a mirror to your
I think it's what I show is what I am, and that is a privilege. And if everybody was able to do that in everything, then the pressure would go down a lot because you're not trying to be somebody else, And okay, I'm not saying that everything I'm doing will necessarily be successful in that, but it is already successful because I'm doing it, and I'm able to do it is itself a huge privilege.
When you try, you get to know what you can do. Without trying, none of them can explore themselves. And that's really fantastic that you had faith in your own guts. And gut is something which is very individualistic. So everyone who gets the gut, I think Sir is our best example that you go with your gut and you can actually achieve things which are so futuristic. And in the world of, virtual, era, where everything is being comparable, everything is being showcased, little moves are being glamorized and, real works have not yet been portrayed on the medias. I think that leads younger generation to a lot of confusions. And it's very important to have this sense of individualism and iconic identities. So, as you talk about that you are the founder of the Darwin's Project Limited. And in that, there are a lot of projects where you integrate sustainability and heritage and urban projects while maintaining historical authenticity. What exactly does Darwin Project Limited frame up, and how did it start?
So the reason why it's called Darwin is its evolution in building technology. It was inspired by Tesla, who he invented electricity. But it is so. It's quite simple. I was always working with heritage. I said, now I've worked with heritage of the past. Now I want to create heritage of the future. That I have created heritage of the future. What is heritage of the future?
Very new.
No, it will become heritage if it has some relevance. If it is irrelevant, it won't become heritage. It may just become another flash in the pan. So my journey to create heritage of the future begins with relevance to the future. So it has to begin with an idea. And I already explained the idea behind Darwin of being permanently impermanent, being able to build something quickly without an architect, without an engineer, without any external help, and make it simple. Simplify is one idea. Cohabit is another idea. And permanently impermanent is a fundamental basis on which all these ideas are built. So the idea is important. The form it takes will keep changing. The idea is very, very important. And I think I'm very much on the dot as far as the idea is concerned. So now it's a question of the journey. And because of travel and exposure and meeting people, I'm able to develop that idea more and more. And every day I get some iteration of what I could do to what I'm already doing. And that's how idea grows, Right. And I have the privilege of being able to actually try it out. Everybody doesn't have that privilege. I have the privilege of trying out a building, trying out another building, trying out a public space, and seeing how it works, learning from it, then doing it and doing it better the next time. So it's a continuum. Improvement is a continuum in life. There is never a place where you say this is perfect. Then nothing is perfect. There's always room for improvement. And I am always seeking that room to improve on anything that you do,
Wow. So I think it's very progressive in your thoughts and very rigorously progressing and adapting to the situations and the trends which are keeping on modifying its own avatars, which you said earlier. So now this brings me to another final main question, which is legacy is central to your work. You've been born and brought up into a really iconic family. And from family Haveri restoration to heritage cities, how do you define legacy as the spaces you preserve, the people you impact, or the values and the vision you pass forward? So what would you want, you to be remembered, or what do you think the legacy in your various avatars you would want to leave for the generations?
Legacy is only one of an individual with a specific type of idea. The physical work that you do are a memory of that legacy. The legacy is intangible, but the tangibles remind you of that legacy. So the Taj Mahal is tangible, but Shah Jahan's idea of architecture and interest made him make it. No, he made so many other buildings. So the icon which is physical is just a memory and stays behind to remind people that there was a person like that. And I think if House of MG or Shreyas or Darwin or whatever continue after me, that will be a reminder of somebody who tried to do something, in this field. So
I'm not sure, and I'm very, very sure that nobody would think that, everybody knows you, and they will definitely know you as Sir Abhay Mangaldas, the pivotalist, the trend setter, the change maker, the iconic, persona who really revolutionized individualism, modernized designs, and also took heritage to an ageless and timeless phenomena. So
It's kind of you to say that, but I don't look at it so much in a
So obviously
grandiose fashion.
people who work, they don't think, but the people who observe, they would definitely see that way.
Thank you.
So taking me to, towards the rapid fire round, let me start with my first question. One word that defines Ahmedabad for you.
Enterprise.
Favorite historical building or monument in Ahmedabad,
The city side.
which is exactly opposite to this icon.
There's a reason for that, but that's not part of the rapid fire. So go ahead.
The favorite book that shaped your vision or inspired you.
7 Habits. You know about that, no? 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Stephen Covey. Yeah.
Yes.
It's a
Favorite-
bit cliched, but that's what it is.
No, I think everyone has their own way of getting self-motivated. And there's no judgment for that. Favorite musician or composer whose work moves you? Both. Musician also, composer also.
I enjoy Qawwali a lot. So that really peps you up, you know. So who is the Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan
Yes.
is
Okay.
one of the favorites, yeah.
And as a composer, do you have any one in your mind?
No, composer doesn't come to mind.
Okay. So favorite actor in a film that left an impression on you?
I think the most impressionable you are when you're a child. And I think when I was a child, primarily you saw Western films. I don't anymore, but at that. And somehow Clint Eastwood was one of those guys, you know.
Wow. And the film, probably if you remember.
There were so many of them. Was he in McKenna's Gold? I'm not sure,
Yeah.
but I could be wrong.
So
I could be wrong over there.
your one local artisan work who inspires you the most?
Local artisan.
Yeah.
So there is this, we buy a lot of furniture from this cane guy
Okay.
who is in the neighborhood. And what he can do with cane is just mind-blowing, you know. Simple, but simple is the most difficult to do. And I work with him to create new furniture all the time. And he is fantastic because he doesn't think, I mean, he's just another cane guy, but he's just around the corner. So I find that people like that, for example, my gardener, he's an artist, and I work with a lot with my gardener. So he inspires me a lot. And for example, our cups and saucers are made of crockery, clay. So they started chipping. So I said, I can't throw away just because it's got a little chip. It's ridiculous. So I went to him and I said, and he's a potter. So he said, what shall we do, Shiv? So he said, okay, I can repair it. So he repaired it. And then he put glaze on it. So now if you see some cups and saucers, if you get tea after this, handmade cups and saucers which have chipped, he has repaired them, which is like the Japanese art of Kensui, you know, where they do gold design on the cracks. But it's not quite like that. But we started now using broken crockery repaired, and he did it. And all across the hotel, you'll have some artwork done by him. So he's fantastic. He inspires me.
Wow.
And I like to think I inspire him. So
it's really very commendable to observe the small niches into people who are so easily available, yet they don't get a platform and you have given them. If you could have a mentor in heritage restoration or design, past or present, who would it be?
So for design, I already mentioned Fry Otto and Buckminster Fuller were very inspiring the work I'm doing. In business, I find that instead of trying to build a business, one should try and build an institution. And this is my effort at House of MG and at Shreyas Foundation. So here I am highly inspired by Vikram Sarabhai, who happened to be my great grand uncle from my grandmother's side, who built so many institutions, and he was able to just keep building new institutions because he found the right team to look after the old ones, and he was able to do it without attachment. And I think that this is a quality which I lack, and I aspire to acquire this quality. It's a question of discipline and letting things go, which of course comes from realizing that whatever you do in a sense is going to be immaterial in the overall scheme of things, where you are a little speck in the universe, living on a tiny speck in the universe, which is our earth. So everything is all this ego and all that is quite without any logic, that we keep thinking so much about it. So I think that eventually one tries to go towards a place where you are detached completely.
So you were also quoting some example of a beautiful
mandala. Yes,
Yeah.
I was talking about the Buddhist tradition for this as an exercise towards detachment, where the monks get together and create this very intricate form of art using powder, colored powder, and they make a mandala. And this mandala is a very intricate work of art which takes weeks to create. Several people, and I've seen them make it. And then during the festival, they put it out in the open at the entry, and people see it, but they see it blown away by the breeze. So it's, in a sense, it's so impermanent. And it's almost as if they celebrate their detachment. The fun was in creating it, not in it being admired. So if you can see, all of us seek validation. Admiration is validation. Here you are talking to me is validation. As soon as I'll make it something, I mean, we are going into this philosophical topic, but since your question was like that I should not seek validation, And this is something which you can do only through meditation or through understanding, a deeper understanding. And I obviously aspire to be reached there, because why do I need validation? Why does anybody need validation? So I think Vikram Sarabhai perhaps didn't think of validation much. I don't know. He died too early.
It's really very beautiful and heart-touching. So one design element you always insist upon in a heritage restoration.
Huh?
One design element you always insist upon in a heritage restoration.
Local. It has to be local.
Wow. So vernacular, local, sustainable, all comes in the same word. True. If a biopic were made on you, what would you name it?
I hope it's not made.
No, I'm sure it should be made.
Continuation to what I was saying about validation. I haven't thought about it. What should it be named? The guy who was always too ahead of his time.
Wow. So progressive.
Perhaps, I don't know. Sometimes when you're too ahead of your time, it's a big struggle also,
I'm sure it is not, especially for you.
No, it's been a struggle. Of course it's a struggle.
So I think it was really, really a great pleasure, and so acknowledging to spend these amazing moments with you, and it will definitely be etched into a lot of hearts and a lot of young minds, bringing lots of change from the grassroots level. And further, I would like to summarize this wonderful session with our very renowned and respectable Abhay Mangaldas Sarji. Heritage is not static. It lives, breathes, and tells the story of generations. Today, with Abhay Mangaldas Sir, we explored how vision, creativity, and commitment to culture can transform cities, communities, and experiences. And thank you so much, Abhay Sir, for sharing your inspiring journey, groundbreaking work, and timeless vision on heritage, hospitality, philanthropy, architecture, art, and innovation. This is Druvita Maida from TADPOD D-Lead, an initiative by the Architect's Diary, and I hope that you like, share, subscribe, comment, and don't forget to listen this groundbreaking and thought-provoking, inspiring conversation with the legendary Abhay Mangaldas Sir. Thank you so much once again, and thank you, sir.
Thank you.
For being
Thank
with
you.
us.
Thank you.